In today's video, I'm going to look at the 5 mistakes that I see early retirees often making and talk about how to avoid them. 5 specific mistakes that destroy early retirement plans faster than anything else. So leaving work in your 50s offers incredible freedom and opportunity ahead. But most people don't understand the financial dangers that come with it. You see, poor pension decisions in your early retirement can cause lasting damage in your later retirement. And these choices can leave you generally struggling 2 decades from now. So this video identifies 5 critical errors that empty pension pots too quickly. And learning about these problems could protect you from running out of money completely. So everything here reflects current UK rules and how they work today. We're going to examine 5 serious financial dangers in this video. First, I'll show you why withdrawing too much money too quickly can destroy your pension. Then we'll look at how bad market timing ruins everything permanently. I'll explain the inheritance tax rules coming in April 2027. We'll also cover a contribution trap that catches people by surprise. And then finally, we'll discuss why most people get longevity and inflation wrong. So these problems aren't just minor issues, they just can reduce your spendings in a big way. And these errors that leave your retirees genuinely broke in older age. So my name's Zach Hussain and I'm the founder of financialeducation.co.uk, and I've got over 25 years experience of helping people plan for their retirement. The first mistake I find people making is that they withdraw their money from their pension too quickly. So we're focusing here about defined contribution schemes here and not defined benefit schemes. So once you access your pot, many people treat it like savings. People withdraw large sums in their first years of early retirement. See, it feels wonderful because the money is finally yours to use. But you are creating a problem that could become impossible to solve later on. See, early retirement could mean your pension fund needs to last for 40 years of living. So withdrawing heavily too early leaves less money working for you and helping deliver you growth. See, the compound returns you lose can never be recovered if you take the money out. So your pot depletes much faster than you ever expected it would. A few years pass and you notice the money has vanished quickly. By that point, you've removed too much and it's going to be pretty much impossible to fix that situation. So for many people, returning to work becomes the only realistic choice. Large withdrawals often go towards travel or supporting grown-up children's needs. Now, some people rightly use that money to clear their mortgage, but some use it to buy expensive items. See, in the moment, those decisions seem perfectly reasonable and justified, but the reality is, over decades, the cost becomes painfully clear to everyone involved. So when you reach your 70s and 80s, sometimes people find that frivolous spending has led to all their money going completely. The second mistake is completely ignoring what's called sequencing risk during early retirement. See, sequencing risk happens when markets crash whilst you're taking money out. This destroys your pension pot in ways you can't always reverse later on. So people withdrawing regular income from invested pensions face this risk the most. Market crashes in your first retirement years cause devastating permanent harm in your later years. You see, you're withdrawing funds at exactly the same time the values are falling. What happens is your pot shrinks and that can't fully recover even after markets come back. So compare this to market crashes whilst you're still working and saving. So during your working years, crashes actually are a good thing. They can help let you buy investments more cheaply. In retirement though, it's a completely different situation. You're forced to sell investment for living expenses. So when you sell during crashes, you're locking those losses forever. The money you've taken out misses any future market recovery completely. And the consequence of that is that your pension stays permanently smaller because you sold at terrible times. Most people never grasp this risk until, unfortunately, it's destroyed all their funds. They always work with the belief that markets will recover and that will fix everything automatically over time. But recovery markets can't help money you've already spent on living costs. You protect against this by holding some money in safer places. You know, that might be something as simple as having an emergency fund with some money set aside that you can draw down on outside of your pension. The third mistake is completely overlooking the upcoming April 2027 inheritance tax changes. So from 6th of April of that year, most unused pension funds and death benefits will count towards inheritance tax. Your estate will include them for inheritance tax purposes and their calculation. So inheritance tax only applies if your estate exceeds the current UK threshold. Spouses, civil partners and charities, however, still remain exempt from this tax completely, and most DC schemes or defined contribution schemes currently sit outside of the estate for inheritance tax purposes too. But from 6th of April 27, that changes completely under the law. So your pensions will get taxed if your estate goes over the threshold. The tax rate is really high and significantly reduces what your family will inherit. So for some families, keeping pensions for children may no longer make sense. This is something that I've seen over the years where people basically treat their pension pot as a way of passing on wealth through to their family. And what I've seen is many early retirees avoid touching their pension for exactly this reason. They spend other money first and deliberately leave pensions completely untouched. So before this policy change, that strategy worked brilliantly for estate planning. However, now I think you really need to reconsider whether preserving your pension still makes sense. You need to think about, should you spend more of your pension during your lifetime instead? After all, you did earn it. Or do you still preserve it anyway, despite the new tax regime that's going to apply? What this means is that your withdrawal decisions in early retirement change potentially because of this rule change. So making the wrong choice here could cost your family enormously, unnecessarily in later years. And of course, you've always got to remember that rules and governments and budgets can continue to change things into the future. So we can only work with the information that we currently have. The fourth mistake is accidentally triggering something called the Money Purchase Annual Allowance, or the MPAA, and that's what people call it for short. See, this applies for defined contribution pensions when you take flexible taxable income. You see, once you trigger it, your tax relievable contributions drop too much less. So what does that mean? In basic terms, it means that once you start taking income from your pension, the amount of pension contributions that you can pay into the future will reduce significantly. So the money purchase allowance currently stands at £10,000 for the tax year. And of course, future governments can change this amount through new rules or budgets. See, what I find is that many people trigger this restriction without realising they've actually done that. You see, taking flexible income, taxable income from your pension triggers the MPAA immediately. Just taking your tax-free cash doesn't trigger it. It's when you start to take an income. Likewise, buying a lifetime annuity usually doesn't trigger it either. But even small flexible taxable withdrawals trigger it permanently going forward. So before triggering it, you can contribute far more and receive full tax relief on your contributions. However, after triggering it, your annual tax relievable limit becomes a tiny fraction instead. For some people, potentially dropping from 60,000 a year down to 10,000 a year. You can still pay more, but obviously tax charges will apply above that. See, this matters enormously for anyone doing phased retirement or part-time retirement and continuing to work. You might want to continue building up your pension whilst working less, but what's going to happen is by triggering this allowance, it means you can't contribute much more than you may have expected to have done. So many people often take small withdrawals just to see how things work. They've got no idea. What they've actually done is they've permanently restricted their future tax relief contributions. And what I find is that this can hurt people in their 50s who are still working. What's happened is that years of potential earning and contributing could still lie ahead for them, but the current rules mean that reduced allowance applies in every single future year, which is not something they expected. The fifth mistake, and I think this is a biggie, is seriously underestimating longevity, which basically means how long you're going to live, and inflation over retirement. See, I find that most people consistently underestimate how long they're actually going to live. See, current data shows that many people reaching 65 will live into their 80s. People plan for 20 years of retirement, when actually 30, maybe even 40 years is likely to be more realistic. Women particularly tend to live far longer than they ever expect. So you see, for some people, early retirement could mean living another 40 years after stopping work. And for many people, that actually exceeds their entire working career by a significant margin. So planning for such extended periods feels overwhelming, but remains absolutely necessary. And the other problem, inflation. Well, this compounds the problem dramatically over such long periods of time. With 3 to 4% inflation, prices basically double every 25 years. So money that feels adequate today becomes inadequate 15 years from now. So year after year, your purchasing power slowly erodes without ever stopping. Your income must grow in real terms to maintain the same standard. So what today feels like a comfortable income becomes inadequate within 10, 15 years from now, unfortunately. And most people assume that their spending naturally decreases as they age over time. However, healthcare costs and care needs actually increase substantially in later life. You'll probably spend less on travel, but you'll probably end up spending far more on health-related issues. So reaching your 80s with no money left is absolutely terrifying. Replacing income through work becomes very difficult at that advanced stage. So conservative planning for longevity, or how long you're going to live, and inflation prevents that nightmare scenario entirely. So it's one that you really need to give serious thought to. So let's finish this video by reviewing the 5 mistakes that impact early retirement and drain your money the fastest. As I keep saying, withdrawing too much money too quickly is by far the most frequent problem that I see. Early retirement pensions must potentially last for 40 years, even longer. Ignoring sequencing risk exposes you to devastating early market crashes, and that could be permanent. So poor returns in your early years cause damage that you can't fix. And of course, the April 2027 inheritance tax changes alter how you potentially balance your spending through retirement. So balancing spending your pension versus leaving inheritance requires careful thought now and not into the future. So keeping pensions for children may not always be the wisest choice going forward. And the new rules primarily affect estates that exceed the inheritance tax thresholds. And we talked about accidentally triggering the money purchase pension allowance and how that can severely limit your future contributions. This particular trap gets people still doing part-time work in their 50s by badly underestimating longevity and inflation. Well, this is also going to cause you major problems decades ahead. You'll probably live longer and face higher costs than you think. Early retirement offers wonderful freedom, but in my experience demands extremely careful financial planning. And these 5 mistakes can seriously damage even very large pension pots. Your rules change regularly, so you should check current official guidance frequently. And by understanding these specific risks, they can help you make better decisions going forward. And if you do need any help, I'd recommend you get some professional financial advice, and an advisor can sit down with you and help you plan how you withdraw your pension over your retirement years. I can honestly say that your future self will genuinely thank you for being cautious today. So if you did like this video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel. We have lots of content around planning for retirement and the issues that you do need to think about. So finally, good luck and goodbye.